Okay, next is the elements of color. So color is one of the elements that can be discussed in many angles. Okay, so for example, we need to use a single color to represent the same type of data. Okay, so because this is to lessen the uh, effort for the reader to understand your data. So we want to avoid their confusion. So same type of data should be represented by a single color, and do not use red for positive number or green for negative numbers. Okay, because those color associations are so strong, it will automatically flip the meaning in the viewer's mind. So as we know, something that is very positive will always be green, something that is negative will always be red. So we use that connotation so that user or reader will understand and pick up. Okay, so green means something good, red means something bad. So make sure there is sufficient contrast between color. Okay, and avoid patterns. For example, patterns in this pie chart. Okay, the stripe, the polka dots. Okay, so it looks fun, but then it is so distracting. Okay, so avoid that, and then we have to select appropriate colors. Okay, and then do not use more than 6 colors in a single layout. Okay, because the brain of reader, they cannot pick up the information. Okay, so if we compare these two representation, the right one is much better. We just use one tone of color, okay, but a different gradient. Okay, so as we know that the higher percentage will normally be darker color, okay, as compared to the lowest percentage. Okay, the next 10 or more slides, we are going to discuss about colors. Okay, the first one is about gradient colors. Okay, so first we have to understand what is gradient colors. So gradient colors or color transition are defined as a gradual blending from one color to another. So this blending can occur between colors of the same tone, from light blue to navy blue, or even from different tones, from blue to yellow, or even more than 2 colors, from blue to purple and to orange and to red. Okay, so in choropleth map, okay, we always use gradient colors to represent information on the map. But it is hard to decipher the actual values from them and to see the difference between the values. So consider that to show your most important values with bars and position or even areas, okay, and to use colors to only show categories. So readers will be able to decipher your values faster. Okay, for example, this is not ideal situation and this is ideal situation. So we have two categories of people, A and B. If we use this area like this or like this dot, so it's harder for reader to pick up the information or to read the information. But if we present it in this like bar graph representation and we don't blend the colors, so we can see that for A people or B people, we can differentiate them between the category of poor and rich. So we know that many A people are within the group of richer people as compared to B people. Okay, so it's easier to see, okay, digest the information, the values faster rather than this. So we cannot actually see the gradient doesn't actually bring interpret the accurate meaning, okay, to reader. Okay, and then in terms of color, we have to justify the color varieties. So as you know, color make it easy to let readers distinguish between categories in your data, but try to avoid using more than 6 colors in a chart. That is the rule. The more color in a chart represent your data, the harder it becomes to read it quickly. So your reader will need to often consult the color key to understand what is shown in your chart. Okay, if you need to use more than 6 colors in a chart, consider using another chart type or to group categories together. Okay, for example, here we have from category A to L and we have more than 6 colors. So this is not good. User cannot pick up, okay, the information easily. So they will always have to see, okay, what does this color mean? Oh, so this green turquoise color is F category. The yellow is L category. So they will always have to refer to the legend. Okay, but this is better, so we just use one tone of color, okay, for A, B until to L. Okay, just gray color. But let's say if we want to emphasize on certain category, so we can put a different color, okay, for that category. Okay, so so it is not a good idea to use too many colors in a visualization, and it will distract, okay, the audience attention, okay, because they are very busy of learning the colors instead of interpreting the data displayed by the visualization. But before that, okay, you will see the terms hue. Okay, so what is hue in color? So it refers to the dominant color family. So hue refers to the origin of the colors that we can see. We have primary, secondary colors, yellow, orange, blue, and so on. So these are considered or what we call as hue. Okay, so I hope that you are not confused, okay, with the term hue, that because we'll see these terms used, okay, in the more next slide to come. Okay, in the next 12 slides is about guidelines in choosing colors. Okay, so for the first guideline is to use the same color for the same variable. So it is the best option, okay, of using the same color, okay, for the same variable in order to avoid overly colorful article, and this is also to reduce confusion, okay, by readers or audience. Okay, for example, we have two charts here. Okay, the first one, the line chart, is to represent unemployment rate. Okay, unemployment rate. Okay, and then the pie chart is to represent a GDP. Okay, so in order to not confuse readers and increase comparability, we have to consider using only this one color, the same color, if you are showing data about the same category, country, etc. So in the first part here, in this not ideal situation, so we have the country of UK and China, okay, for unemployment chart, and for GDP is between China and Germany. Okay, so we have used red for UK and blue for China. Okay, this is okay. But then in the second chart, okay, probably this is within the same report. Okay, so you use China for blue color and for red color and blue for Germany. So this will create confusion. So if you want to use, if you use blue for China in the first time, just retain the same color in the next chart, because you are representing China within the same report. So in this representation is better, so we retain the blue color for China and yellow is for Germany. Okay, and as you know, red is for UK. So that is the first guideline. The second guideline is to make sure to explain to readers what your colors encode. So for every visual mark that represents a value or variable should be explained. For example, what does the height of your bar mean? What does the size of your circles on a symbol map represents? Okay, so this is the same for colors. So there are many ways to create a color key. So these are three of the way. Okay, you can use if you use gradient, so you can show the scale, okay, from 0 to 100. So 100 is the highest, the darker color normally is the highest value, okay, and the brightest color is the lowest value. And you can also represent in this representation, okay, of bar by individual tones of color to show the values, okay. So probably this is the lightest one is 0%, and then the brighter than that is 25%, followed by 50, 70, and 100. And the third one is about, okay, you wants to represent the color information of a country. Okay, as in the previous slide is about China and Germany. So China is represented by red, Germany by blue. Okay, for example, even though in the previous slide China was represented by blue. Okay, so meaning that from this color we can understand if we have a chart here, okay, with the right line, so we know that this is China. Okay, so we can also, okay, in this graph, okay, we could use the legend. Okay, the legend can be actually represented by the sentence itself. For example, in this title of the chart. Okay, so it says in Texas, Beto O'Rourke outperformed Lupe Valdez among key Democratic groups. So it represents, okay, the name of the group or team by colors. So this color represent the team. Okay, so there are many ways to represent the color, but make sure you have to explain to reader what does your color encode means. The third one is to consider the color gray as the most important color in data visualization. So gray is suggested to use, okay, because it shows a less important element in your chart. Okay, but if you want to highlight certain elements or certain value, you could use a bright color to represent that particular information. Okay, so gray is also helpful for general context data, for less important annotations, and to show what is unselected by the user, or to tone down the overall visual impression of your chart. Okay, so since gray can come off a little cold color, so consider using it with a hint of color. For example, if you want to show something, emphasize on some value, so you use a warm gray, okay, and then with gray or gray plus yellow or orange or red, okay, or gray with use another very light color as alternative, for example, super light yellow and so on. So but another tips or rule, okay, or maybe another tips, okay, so do not use red and green or orange and green together to make a comparison on the same chart, because about 10% of men are color blinded, okay, with red or green being the most common form of color blinded. So we want to avoid confusion. Okay, so orange is close to red, so making these colors which will make, if you use orange, will make these colors completely unnoticeable. So that is why we need to avoid to use red and green or orange and green, because red and orange is a close color and it is more unnoticeable than red, and red and green is the two colors, okay, two colors for color blinded people that they are confused of. So in order to make sure your charts are more accessible to your audience, so avoid these color combinations at all costs. Okay, so then this is the tips that you have to apply. So in this representation, so gray is the most reliable and versatile color option. Okay, so we can represent the one that we want to emphasize with a brighter color. With this kind of color selection, so you can focus your audience attention on the chart rather than this, because there are so many colors, so the minds are busy of recognizing the color and to see the legend, to understand the color coding. Okay, so that's why this is recommended to use gray color for general data representation. And then the fourth one is to make sure your contrasts are high enough, so your reader will be able to read your chart on their screen even in low light, or even you use light colors, okay, like gray. So this is especially important for text. So the smaller the text, the higher its contrast to the background needs to be, so for it to be readable. So if the font is very small and the color is very light, so the contrast ratio is very low, so reader cannot read, okay, the information being displayed. So the contrast ratio between background and the foreground, okay, should be at least 2.5 for big text, okay, so big text, and at 4 for small text. Okay, so at this contrast level, so it can be a good choice, so that it's easier for reader to read it. Okay, this is less contrast, so not really, okay, and if it's the color green and red, okay, so avoid using a complementary hue like red and green or orange and blue for bright colors bright colors for background. So this is bad okay, selection of color. So for example, this bright color green, okay, it is okay with the font color of green, okay, rather than red. So this is not ideal.